Hello and welcome back to the Data Privacy Lawyer. My name is Funmi Owolabi and I'm the principal attorney at the firm. Today's review, we're going to be looking at cookies. So we have privacy compliant software. Let's take a look at the banner. We use cookies to improve your experience and analyze site traffic. Click the Manage Preference button to adjust your privacy settings. So we're going to click it and okay, let's talk about this. When I clicked on this button, and it also looks like they manage their own consent management platform. That's really interesting. Now, what I wanted to show and demonstrate to you is all of these are green. Now, we've done other cookie notice reviews, and sometimes you'll see when you manage your preferences that these will be switched off. Now, this is really important. What's happening on the back end, I presume, is the fact that I, as a US resident, have the opportunity to opt out of certain cookies. As I landed on the page, the minute I landed on, I was presented with that notice that was here. And then after I was presented with the notice, I then had the opportunity to manage my cookie preferences, which is what I'm doing now. When we opened this preference center, all of these had been turned on to green because the obligations that this organization has to me as a visitor of the website is to give me the opportunity to opt out, which is what I just did. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we can see here that there's essential, marketing, and analysis and functional cookies. The essential cookies are always on. They allow the site to function. I'm just going to open it because I want to take a look at whether or not they list them. Okay, they do. That's excellent. I've talked a lot about this on other reviews. Having a date in which your notice was last updated is really important in many geographies. In some geographies, it's actually mandatory. I try and find out where a business is headquartered because it gives us insight into what obligations they are adhering to at a minimum. Now, in Texas, we do have a US state privacy law. I know that for a fact. I'm accessing the site from the United States, but we can see where they're headquartered. Now, why is it valuable to look at this? I always ask my clients to provide me the geographies where they're headquartered and then the geographies where they offer their products and services. Personal data is not restricted to just the geography where you're headquartered. Your obligations are outside of that, right? I don't live in Texas, but I am accessing this site in the United States and I have rights. This business is required to take that into consideration when they draft their notice. What are cookies and their use? Cookies are small text files placed on your computer if you allow it. They are widely used to make sites work efficiently and improve your experience when visiting and using our site apps. I want to make mention of something else related to this sentence. I think this is a very valuable sentence because many consumers that visit the site don't know what a cookie is. If I asked both of my parents what a cookie is, my father would definitely know because he works in the technology space, but I doubt my mother would. And I also feel like if I asked friends of mine in my age group what a cookie was explicitly, they might have a generic understanding of what it is, but in terms of the privacy implication, they definitely would not know. So having a definition and understanding who your audience is very important. This notice is not being drafted for a legal audience, like a lawyer audience. This is being drafted for people that are purchasing the products and solutions offered by this organization. So having a definition is really valuable. Let me just scroll down. I think a upgrade, in my opinion, to this notice would be also having a section that addresses the name of the organization in the event that they have consumers like myself that have additional questions and want to be able to identify who is responsible for the cookie collection. Now, there's two main types of cookies. Again, we have additional definitions. I find that valuable. So they've listed all of the cookies associated here. Now, the reason why it's so important to update your notice on a periodic basis is because the types of cookies associated with your website may change. The other thing I think is very valuable in this introduction paragraph is identifying where the cookies are being collected. In other notice reviews that I've done, we've seen sometimes that the scope for the business is not just their website. Sometimes it also is influenced by a mobile application that they may have. So it's also really valuable to include the scope outside of any definitions that you provide and identify the legal entity name of the organization that is going to be collecting these cookies. And I think that that should be consistent among the privacy notice and the cookie notice. Whatever the legal entity that is responsible for the processing activities needs to be identified in all notices and scope. So we already looked at that. control. How can I control the cookie preferences? You can click on the manage cookies to provide your preferences. I also want to talk a bit about this cookie, and this is becoming more and more popular. I'm seeing more and more sites that do have this cookie button that you can actually click. And if you click it, you can manage your cookie preferences. Now, what does this mean from a data protection standpoint? When we look at consent giving from a data protection standpoint, it needs to be just as easy to withdraw your consent as it was to give it. Now, let's just say, for example, I'm going to go back down and I'm going to click marketing, accept selected. So at this point, cookies related to marketing are being collected on me by this site. But it was so easy for me to click that button. It should be just as easy based on the data protection laws to withdraw my consent as it was to give it. So businesses shouldn't have layers and layers whenever a consumer opts in to certain cookies, and it should not be difficult for them to then opt out if they would prefer to. That's a requirement under the data protection laws. And if your products and services are being provided in the European Union, definitely. Now, let me show you something that gives me the opinion that this is offered outside the United States. If we look at the solution, right, we've got the EU GDPR. They've got some sort of solution that they're offering in the European Union based on the GDPR. They also have it based on the LGPD. Now, for anybody watching this that's not familiar with these acronyms are the acronyms associated with data protection laws in these geographies. So in the European Union, the applicable data protection law is the GDPR. In Brazil, it's the LGPD. And then in Canada, it's PIPEDA. And I talked a little bit about US geographies. This particular organization is headquartered in Texas, and Texas does have a US state privacy law, and we can see some additional state privacy laws that they've addressed up here. So this gives me the opinion that this is not just being offered in the US, it's also being offered in the European Union, Brazil, and Canada, which means that it's likely that there are consumers of this website that are visiting this page that I'm currently on, whose cookies will be collected in those geographies. And again, these are the data protection laws that must be adhered to with respect to the visitors who are visiting this site. Because their obligations are not just to Texas residents, they're to those who might be exploring these types of solutions that land on this site. Okay, I really hope you enjoyed my review. If you have any comments or questions about what I've stated, leave a comment below and I'll see you in another review.